My name is Judy, and at my brother's wedding, my 6-year-old daughter walked to her seat and picked up the card. It didn't say her name. It said, fake daughter. She read it out loud, her face crumbling. I didn't scream. I did this. 30 minutes later, they were calling nonstop. The ballroom sparkled like a jewelry box turned inside out. Chandeliers, white roses, strings of lights. No expense spared. My parents had been bragging for months, and now I saw why. They weren't just celebrating their son's marriage. They were parading their ticket into wealth, status, new circles, polished and on display. And my daughter, Ella, was wide-eyed, practically vibrating with excitement. Her first wedding she'd actually remember. She twirled in her tiny dress, pointing out everything. The cake, the music, the flowers. For one blissful moment, I thought maybe she'd get to feel some magic today. Then the ushers started seating people. Every chair had a neat cream-colored card waiting. I wasn't paying close attention. I wish I had been. Ella ran ahead of me eager, her dress swishing around her knees. She gasped when she saw her place card waiting, just like the grown-ups. Look, Mama, she said, climbing onto the chair, bouncing with pride. There's writing on mine. My stomach turned. I hadn't even noticed her card until that moment. If I had, I would have whisked it away before her little hands touched it. She picked it up with both hands, grinning as if it were a gift. She held it high, then squinted, her lips moving slowly. She was still new to reading. Not quick, not fluent, but determined. She sounded it out loud enough that people around us began to glance over. Fake daughter. The words fell heavy in the air. She read them clearly, carefully, proud of herself for managing the letters before the meaning reached her. Her grin wavered. Confusion spread first, then realization, and then her face collapsed. Her shoulders hunched, her eyes filled, and the joy of the whole day drained out of her in an instant. The hall went quiet. Too quiet. A silence that prickled, like everyone had heard, but no one wanted to be caught listening. I froze. Oh, for heaven's sake, my mother said with a laugh sharp enough to cut glass. We didn't think she could read yet. It was just a joke. Just a joke. My brother Andrew leaned back in his chair, smirking. Well, technically it's true. She's not really your daughter. Ella sat rigid, eyes wet, lower lip trembling. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Elizabeth, the bride, move, rising from her chair. She came closer, leaning in just enough to see the card Ella was clutching. Her eyes flicked over the words, but I didn't stay on her face. I didn't care what she looked like in that moment. All I knew was my little girl was breaking. She looked at me, desperate for an answer, as if I could explain why her family had just erased her with 2 words. I gathered her into my lap, felt her body stiff with shame and hurt. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I didn't give them the scene they wanted. The one where they could roll their eyes and say, "See, she's dramatic." I stood. We're leaving, I said simply, my voice colder than the champagne chilling in the buckets. Andrew chuckled, shaking his head. My father muttered, "Don't overreact." It was supposed to be funny. As I turned to go, Elizabeth followed a few steps behind. She caught up only when we were near the doors, her voice low, almost a whisper no one else could hear. I didn't know, she said quickly. I didn't slow my stride. I believe you, I answered just as quietly, my grip on Ella tightening. But we don't feel welcome here. And with that, I walked out, every click of my heels across that marble floor louder than any scream. 30 minutes later, they were calling me nonstop, asking what I had done. I used to think I had a good childhood. That's the funny thing about being the firstborn. You don't know any better. If you've never had a sibling, you think everything you get is normal. For 5 years, I thought I was enough. Then Andrew was born. At first, everyone told me I was jealous. They said it like it was a diagnosis. Of course, she's acting out. She's not used to sharing attention. But I wasn't acting out. I was watching. I watched my dad, who never had time to play with me because he was always busy, suddenly find endless hours to play catch with his son. I watched my mom glow with excitement over every silly noise Andrew made in a way she never had with me. I didn't know what was wrong with me back then. Now I do. I was the wrong gender. From that day forward, it was clear Andrew was the golden boy, and me, I was fine. Background, useful when they needed me, but never dazzling, never celebrated. By the time I was in college, I learned that being fine didn't get you much. So I picked up babysitting jobs to make some extra money. That's how I met Michael. He was in his late 20s, already a single father. His little girl was barely out of diapers. The mother was gone. Drugs, court, custody stripped. He was working long hours, trying to hold things together. It wasn't supposed to be anything more than a job. A paycheck for me, a break for him. But life doesn't follow the plan. I started to care about the child first. She would cling to me when I arrived, babble stories only I seemed to understand. One night, she woke screaming, and I was the one who calmed her, not Michael. Something shifted after that. And then, slowly, I realized I cared about Michael too. Not because it was some sweeping romance, but because he was steady, because he showed up, because he treated me like I was someone, not just background. When it turned into love, it shocked me as much as anyone. So, when I told Mom and Dad, I expected at least a little support. Instead, Mom's mouth curled like I dragged mud across her carpet. Dad didn't even hesitate. He's older. He's damaged. You're raising someone else's child. I laughed nervously, waiting for the punchline, but it never came. They didn't whisper their disgust. They said it to my face. It wasn't just Ella they couldn't accept. It was the fact that my choice didn't shine on them. No status boost. No new story to brag about. To them, love wasn't enough. Appearances always came first. For a while, I didn't care. I was happy. I had Ella. I had Michael. And I thought I'd finally built my own family. When we got married, I thought maybe they'd show up. They didn't. Not only did they skip the wedding, they didn't give a cent. I told myself, fine, they'll come around later. But later never came. And then, one rainy night, the phone rang, and everything ended. Car accident. Instant. Gone. I barely remember the days that followed. What I do remember is Ella. She crawled into my lap that night and wrapped her arms around my neck, like she was afraid I'd vanish too. "When's Daddy coming home?" she whispered. I couldn't answer. I just held her tighter. For weeks, she woke up crying in the dark. I climbed into bed beside her, rubbed her back until she drifted off. Some nights, I didn't sleep at all. That's what grief looks like in a child. Not black clothes and funerals, just the same question over and over. When's he coming back? And the only answer I had was silence. Naively, I thought maybe this was the moment Mom and Dad would finally soften. I asked them if they could spend more time with Ella. She needed family, I said. She needed stability. Dad didn't even lower his newspaper. "She's not really your daughter, Judy. When are you giving her back?" I blinked, sure I'd misheard. Give her back. To who? Her mother, Mom said coolly. "She's still out there somewhere, isn't she?" I stared at them, stunned. They knew the whole story. The drugs, the court case, the custody loss. They'd known for years. "She's 6, I whispered. "She's just lost her father." "How can you even say that?" Mom sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. "You can't keep living in this fantasy. She's not your child." That was the night another crack split wide open. But I still made excuses for them. Maybe they didn't understand. Maybe they were scared for me. Maybe one day they'd see Ella the way I did. Then Andrew got engaged. If they'd ever looked happy with me, it was nothing compared to the way they beamed when Andrew announced it. It was as if every birthday, every graduation, every small win of mine had been practice for this moment. Their golden boy, finally taking the spotlight. They threw themselves into the wedding as though it were their own. Mom lived at bridal shops, fussing over colors and fabrics. Dad boasted to anyone who'd listen about the guest list, the venue, the spectacle of it all. They weren't just proud, they were obsessed. And the irony? Elizabeth's family had money. Real money. She didn't need their help, but they shoved it in anyway because this time they wanted to show off. They wanted to stand tall in front of people with status, to look like they belonged. When it was my wedding, they'd claimed poverty. "We don't have money for that." When it was Andrew's, suddenly the checkbook opened like magic. For Andrew, every detail mattered. They micromanaged the flowers, the tables, the chairs, and that's how my 6-year-old Ella ended up with a card on her chair, a card that didn't say her name, a card that said fake daughter. That's the thing about my family. It was never about love. It was always about appearances. And appearances eventually always crack. I didn't look back when I walked out of that ballroom. The sound of my heels on marble was louder than any scream I could have given them, and in some ways, louder than Ella's silence in my arms. She didn't cry on the way out. That scared me more than if she had. She just buried her face into my shoulder, breathing in sharp little gasps, like she'd run too far and couldn't catch her breath. I promised her ice cream, not because ice cream fixes anything, but because sometimes sugar and sprinkles are the only weapons you've got against cruelty. The cafe was bright and noisy, the kind of place where kids smeared chocolate on their cheeks and parents pretended it didn't matter. I thought maybe it would be enough to distract her. It wasn't. She sat with her sundae in front of her, untouched, her little hands folded in her lap, 6 years old and sitting like she was at a funeral. Then she looked up at me with eyes too big for her face. "You're not really my mama, are you?" The words landed like a blade. I tried to keep my face calm, like I hadn't just been gutted in the middle of a cafe. "Why would you say that, baby?" "Because the card said fake." Her lower lip trembled. "And you didn't." She stopped, searching for words, then whispered, "You didn't have me." I leaned forward, took her little hand. "Ella, listen to me. Some kids grow in their mama's tummy. Some join their family later. Some are adopted. Families can start in all sorts of ways. But you know what really makes a mama?" She blinked up at me, eyes wet. "Love," I said, my voice steady. "Love makes a mama. And I love you more than anything in this world. You are my daughter in every way that matters, always." She sniffled. "They said, are you going to give me back?" I almost choked on air. "Give you back? Never. Not in a million years. You are mine and I am yours. Nobody, not even them, gets to take that away." Her lip wobbled. Then she climbed across the bench and launched herself into my lap, knocking the spoon onto the floor. She buried her face in my neck, whispering, "Promise. Promise." I murmured into her hair, "Forever." For 5 whole minutes, it was quiet. Just me and her and the mess of melted ice cream we weren't touching. For 5 whole minutes, I thought maybe the world could pause. Then my phone started buzzing. One call, then another, then another. I slid it out of my bag, glanced at the screen. "Mom." Decline. It rang again. "Dad." Decline again. "Andrew." Decline. I put it face down on the table. It buzzed anyway, rattling against the cheap plastic surface. Other parents looked over. I smiled tight at them, the kind of smile that says, "Mind your business," without having to use words. Then Ella finally lifted her spoon and slurped at her ice cream, trying to pretend she hadn't noticed the tension. I forced a smile. "Sprinkles are the best part, aren't they?" She nodded. For a moment, it looked like maybe the day could still be salvaged. But I could feel her little body leaning against mine, like she knew the storm wasn't over. That night, after Ella was finally asleep, I turned the phone back on. The screen lit up like a Christmas tree. 57 missed calls. 32 unread messages. I scrolled through them, my heart pounding harder with every one. "What did you do? Pick up now. Stop hiding. You ruined everything." My stomach dropped. I hadn't said a word to anyone. Unless you counted the 2 quiet sentences to Elizabeth. The phone buzzed again in my hand. "Mom." I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. Then I swiped. "What the hell did you do?" she shouted before I could speak. "Hello to you too," I said dryly. "Don't play games with me, Judy." "What did you tell her?" "Tell who?" "What?" "The bride. Elizabeth. We saw you talking to her." My mind reeled back to that brief whisper at the door. "I didn't know." "I believe you." That was it. That was all. "I didn't tell her anything," I said slowly. "Don't lie to me." She left. She walked out of her own reception. "Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" I went silent, stunned. She left. Yes, she left. Mom's voice was shrill, panicked. "And Andrew is beside himself. Do you understand?" His wife walked out. And it's on you. All on you. The line crackled with her breathing. My own heart pounded so hard I thought she might hear it. I wanted to argue, to explain, to scream, but the words stuck in my throat. Because if Elizabeth had really left, nothing I said would matter. My family had already decided whose fault it was. Mine. Always mine. Andrew showed up the next morning, pounding on my front door like he was auditioning for a SWAT team. I opened it because, frankly, I was afraid the hinges would give way if I didn't. He didn't even say hello. His face was red, blotchy, his tie still hanging loose, like he'd slept in it. What did you tell her? Good morning to you too, I said flatly. He pushed inside, pacing like a caged animal. Elizabeth, she left. She's talking about annulment. She says she can't live with lies. You ruined everything. I stared at him. Andrew, I said nothing. Literally nothing. Ask her yourself. I saw you talking to her, he snapped at the door. Don't you dare lie to me. I said 3 words to her. I believe you. That's it. If your marriage can't survive 3 words, maybe it was built on sand. His mouth worked like he wanted to shout, but nothing came out. Finally, he slammed his fist against the wall. Fix it. I'm not a plumber, I said dryly. Your marriage is your mess, not mine. He cursed, stormed out, the door rattling in its frame. 4 days after that, nothing. No calls, no knocks, no whispered updates through relatives. Just silence. The kind that feels less like peace and more like someone holding their breath. I tried to pretend it was over, that maybe they'd burn themselves out. But every night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting. On the 3rd morning, my phone finally buzzed. A single message from Mom. You won't get away with this. You'll regret it. We'll make sure of it. I read it once, then again, and again. What did that even mean? What was I supposed to have done? My throat felt dry. I showed no one, not even Ella. I just kept staring at the words, as if reading them enough times might make them make sense. It didn't. And then nothing. Another week of silence. School runs, grocery shopping, bedtime stories, everything ordinary. Except it wasn't. Every knock on the door made me jump. Every unknown number on my phone sent my heart racing. The quiet was worse than shouting. Then one morning, a knock finally came. Not Andrew this time. Worse. A woman stood there. Early 30s maybe. Well-dressed, hair neat. Not the wreck I remembered from whispered family stories. She introduced herself, but I didn't need the name. Ella's biological mother. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I only found out recently, she said. Her voice was calm, almost apologetic. About Michael, about Ella. My stomach dropped. She said my daughter's name. I crossed my arms, bracing myself. Why are you here? I was contacted, she said. Your parents told me. They said I should know what's going on, that she shouldn't be raised by a stranger. She shifted her bag on her shoulder, eyes steady on mine. Your parents reached out. They said I should know what's happening. My mouth went dry. She's not a stranger, I managed, my voice tighter than I wanted. She's my daughter. You haven't adopted her, she said, calm, almost careful. Not legally. And if you don't let me see her, I'll take it to court. The bottom fell out of my stomach. She wasn't wrong. The papers were still unfinished, buried under grief and red tape. I hadn't managed to push through. For a second, all I wanted to do was slam the door, but my hand wouldn't move. What is it you want? I asked, barely above a whisper. She didn't blink. I want to see her. I didn't sleep that night. I watched Ella's chest rise and fall as she dreamed, her little fingers curled around her stuffed rabbit. The thought of losing her made my lungs seize. But the next day I agreed. A supervised visit, because if I didn't, court was the alternative and court was risk. The visitation was awkward from the first second. Ella eyed the woman like she was a stranger on a bus, which to her, she was. She sat stiffly on the couch beside me, half behind my arm, answering in short words when spoken to. What do you like to do? The woman asked. Ella shrugged. Draw. The woman smiled, soft but cautious. She leaned in. Do you draw with Ella cut her off, proud and plain as a bell. I draw with Mama. Her small hand found mine, gripping tight. Her other hand fidgeted with the hem of her dress. She didn't move until it was over. She only relaxed when she was back in my lap, like a magnet snapping. The woman watched, her face unreadable. She said, "Thank you for letting me see her." And then she left without another word, her heels clicking quickly down the path. A week passed after that quiet visit. I heard nothing. No calls, no emails. I kept waiting for the hammer to fall. Then one afternoon, my phone lit up with a message from her number. I talked to my husband. We've talked it through. I don't want to disrupt her life. If you want to adopt her formally, I won't stand in the way. I'll sign the papers to support it, but if she ever wants to know me, I'll be here when she's older. Relief slammed into me, so hard I had to sit down. But even as the panic eased, a small, ugly part of my brain braced for the next move. My parents had tried to use a ghost to scare me. Instead, they'd given me the chance to make Ella mine in every way that counts. I closed my eyes and laughed once, too loud and shaky to be a laugh. Then I called my lawyer because, even when a miracle arrives, you still need paperwork. Fast forward a year. No calls, no texts, no fake olive branches, just silence. And honestly, that silence feels like freedom. Ella is mine now. Legally, officially, permanently mine. The adoption papers are signed and locked away, but I could recite every line from memory. I walked out of the courthouse, clutching that folder like it was treasure. Ella squeezed my hand the whole way out. She didn't say much, just looked up at me once and asked, "So it's really done?" When I nodded, she gave this quiet little smile, the kind that told me she finally believed she was safe. For the first time, there's no loophole. No one can take her from me. Andrew divorced. Elizabeth left him. And I heard exactly why from relatives. She saw how he smirked when Ella was humiliated and realized that was who he really was. That was her red flag. Better to walk now than waste years. He didn't get a cent in the split. Not one. All he got was a reputation in tatters and an empty bank account. And my parents, you won't believe this. After Elizabeth left, they actually asked her family to pay them back for what they'd spent on the wedding. We paid for the flowers and the chairs and the reception. You can afford to reimburse us. As if that's how weddings work. As if volunteering money makes you creditors. Elizabeth's answer? A flat no. You wanted to show off. That's on you. And just like that, all that cash was gone, along with the country club invitations and the new friends they'd been bragging about. Their grand investment bought them nothing but humiliation. They tried to destroy me. Instead, they destroyed themselves. And the only thing they gave me was the push to make Ella mine forever. So, tell me, would you have cut them off for good like I did, or left the door cracked, hoping they'd change? Let me know in the comments and subscribe.